Donald thinks, accurate analysis of several aspects of Gould's rhetorical style. Demonstrations of erudition, foreign phrases, poetry, irrelevant to the intellectual arguments, but widely regarded even by his critics. Branding the opposition with degenerative labels such as pop science, pop psychology, cardboard Darwinism, or fundamentalist Darwinians. Oversimplifying his opponent's position in order to set up straw man arguments, the classic being labeling his opponents as genetic determinists, protecting his own position by making illusory concessions to give the appearance of fair-mindedness in the attempt to restrict debate, claiming the moral high ground, ignoring relevant data known to all in the scientific community, proposing non-adaptionist interpretations, proposing non-adaptationist alternatives without attempting to test them and ignoring data supporting adaptionist interpretations, arguing that proximate explanations, i.e. explanations of how a trait works at the neuropsychological level, render ultimate explanations unnecessary. The comments of Maynard Smith, Wright, and Alcock highlight the important issue that despite the scholarly community's widespread recognition of Gould's intellectual dishonesty, Gould has been highly publicized as a public spokesperson on issues related to evolution and intelligence. As Alcock notes, Gould, as a widely published Harvard professor, makes it respectable to be an anti-adaptionist, and MacDonald has noticed this effect not only among the educated public, but also among many academics outside the biological sciences. Gould has had access to highly prestigious intellectual forums, including a regular column in Natural History, it's a publication, and along with Richard C. Lewontin, he is often featured as a book reviewer in the New York Review of Books. The New York Review of Books has long been a bastion of the intellectual left. In Chapter 4, MacDonald discusses the role of the New York Review of Books in psychoanalysis, and in Chapter 6, the New York Review of Books is listed among the journals of the New York intellectuals, a predominantly Jewish clique that dominated intellectual discourse in the post-World War II era. The point here is that Gould's career of intellectual dishonesty has not existed in a vacuum, but has been part of and parcel of a wide-ranging movement that has dominated the most prestigious intellectual arenas in the United States and the West, a movement that is here conceptualized as a facet of Judaism as a group evolutionary strategy. On a more personal level, MacDonald clearly recalls that one of his first noteworthy experiences in graduate school in the behavioral sciences was being exposed to the great instinct debate between German ethologist Konrad Lorenz and Irenaeus Abel Eibsfeld, I think I pronounced that right, probably not, versus several predominantly Jewish American development psychobiologists. These were D.S. Lehrman, J.S. Rosenblatt, T.C. Schnierle, H. Maltz, G. Gottlieb, and E. Tobach. Lorenz's connection to National Socialism were a barely concealed aspect of this debate, and MacDonald remembers feeling that he was witnessing some sort of ethnic warfare, rather than a dispassionate scientific debate of evidence. Indeed, the intense extra-scientific passion these issues raised in some participants were openly admitted toward the end of this extraordinary conflict. In his 1970 contribution, Lehrman stated, I should not point out irrational, emotional-laden elements in Lorenz's reaction to criticism without acknowledging that when I took over my 1953 critique of his theory, I perceive elements of hostility to which my target would have been bound to react. My critique does not now read to me like an analysis of a scientific problem with an evolution of the contribution of a particular point of view, but rather like an assault upon a theoretical point of view, the writer of which assault was not intended in pointing out what positive contributions the point of view had made. That's Lehrman, who was one of the Jew American development psychobiologists. More recently, as the debate has shifted away from opposing human ethology toward attacks on human sociobiology, several of these development psychobiologists have also become prominent critics of sociobiology. This is not, of course, to deny the very important contributions of these development psychobiologists and their emphasis on the role of the environment in behavioral development, a tradition that remains influential within the development psychology in the writings of several theorists, including Alan Fogel, Richard Lerner, Arnold Samroff, and Esther Thielen. Moreover, it must be recognized that several Jews have been important contributors to evolutionary thinking as it applies to humans as well as human behavioral genetics, including Daniel G. Friedman, Richard Herrnstein, Seymour Itzkoff, Erwin Silverman, Nancy Siegel, Lionel Tiger, and Glenn Weisfeld. Of course, non-Jews have been counted among the critics of evolutionary biological thinking. Nevertheless, the entire episode clearly indicates that there are often important human interests that involve Jewish identity and that influence scientific debate. The suggestion here is that one consequence of Judaism as a group evolutionary strategy has been to skew these debates in a manner that has impeded progress in the biological and social sciences. Richard Lerner, in his book Final Solutions, Biology, Prejudice, and Genocide, is perhaps the most egregious example of a scientist motivated to discredit evolutionary biological thinking because of putative links with anti-Semitism. Lerner is a prominent developmental psychologist, and his volume indicates an intense personal involvement directed at combating anti-Semitism by influencing theory in the behavioral sciences. Prior to discussing the explicit links between Lerner's theoretical perspective and his attempt to combat anti-Semitism, MacDonald will describe his theory and illustrate the type of strained thinking with which he has attempted to discredit the application of evolutionary thinking to human behavior. Central to this program is Lerner's rejection of biological determinism in favor of a dynamic contextualist approach to human development. Lerner also rejects environmental determinism, but there is little discussion of the later view because environmental determinism is, quote, perhaps less oftenly social pernicious, unquote. In this regard, Lerner is surely wrong. A theory there is no human nature would imply that humans could easily be programmed to accept all manner of exploitation, including slavery. From a radical environmentalist perspective, it should not matter how societies are constructed, since people should be able to learn to accept any type of social structure. Women could easily be programmed to accept rape, and ethnic groups could be programmed to accept their own domination by other ethnic groups. The view that radical environmentalism is not socially pernicious also ignores the fact that the communist government of the Soviet Union murdered millions of its citizens and later engaged in officially sponsored anti-Semitism while committed to an ideology of radical environmentalism. Lerner's dynamic contextualism pays lip service to biological influences while actually rendering them inconsequential and unanalyzable. This theory has strong roots in the developmental biological tradition described above, and there are numerous references to these writers. The dynamic contextualist perspective conceptualizes development as a dialect interaction between organism and environment. Biological influences are viewed as a reality, but they are ultimately unanalyzable, since they are viewed as being inextricably fused with environmental influences. The most notable conclusion is that any attempt to study genetic variation as an independently analyzable influence on individual differences is rejected. Many of the critics of sociobiology have also been strong opponents of behavior genetic research. For a particular egregious example, embodying practically every possible misunderstanding of basic behavior genetic concepts, see Gould. It bears mentioning that dynamic contextualism and its emphasis on the dialect interaction between organism and environment bear more than a passing resemblance to Marxism. The foreword of Lerner's book was written by R.C. Lewontin, the Harvard population biologist who has engaged in a high-profile attempt to fuse science, leftist politics, and opposition to evolutionary and biological theorizing about human behavior. Lewontin was the first author Lewontin was the first author of Not in Our Genes, a book that begins with a statement of the author's commitment to socialism and, among a great many other intellectual sins, continues the disinformation regarding the role of IQ testing in the immigration debates of the 1920s and its putative links to the Holocaust. Indeed, E.O. Wilson, whose synthetic volume, Sociobiology, The New Synthesis, inaugurated the field of sociobiology, notes that, quote, without Lewontin, the sociobiology controversy would not have been so intense or attracted such widespread attention, unquote. In his foreword to Lerner's book, Lewontin states that developmental contextualism is, quote, the alternative to biological and cultural determinism. It is this statement of the developmental contextual view that it is the important central point of final solutions. That is Lerner's book. And it is the full elaboration of that point of view that is a pressing program for social theory. Nowhere has this worldview been put more distinctly than in Marx's third thesis on Feuerbach. Lewontin goes on to quote a passage from Marx that does indeed express something like the fundamental idea of developmental contextualism. Gould has also endorsed a Marxist dialectical perspective in the social sciences. Lerner devotes much of his book to showing that dynamic contextualism, because of its emphasis on plasticity, provides a politically acceptable perspective on racial and sexual differences, as well as promising a hope for ending anti-Semitism. This type of messianic redemptionist attempt to develop a universalist theoretical framework within which Jewish-Gentile group differences are submerged in importance is a common feature of other predominantly Jewish movements in the 20th century, including radical political theories and psychoanalysis. The common theme is that these ideologies have been consistently promoted by individuals who, like Lerner, are self-consciously pursuing a Jewish ethnic and political agenda. Recall also Gould's tendency to seize the moral high ground here. However, the ideologies are advocated because of their universalist promise to lead humanity to a higher level of morality, a level of morality in which there is continually